You just feel like 1v1ing?
Yeah. Also, I need clips for videos.
Frick. What's the video about?
Air Dribble Bump.
Oh, you little wiener. Demo wings for losers.
This was so cool, though.
No?
It wasn't?
No? See, you did it again. Loser. Forever a loser. See? Big loser pads.
Okay, listen. So Rocket League is an amazing game, right? You know, you've got all these crazy mechanics like the flip reset, the ceiling shot, all these crazy types of flicks that you can do. But the thing about all these mechanics is that they are all easily savable and readable if you practice them enough on defense. Well, that is true for all but one mechanic. There is one mechanic in Rocket League that if you do correctly, the defender can do nothing about it. Like when you set this up, the defender just has to hope that you screw up in some way, because if you do everything right, there's nothing they can do. It's that effective. Like there's a reason that it's known in the community as the unstoppable move. So in this video, we're going to break down how it works, how to do it and practice it, and finally some tips if you're trying to defend one of these on defense. So without any more delay, let's go ahead and start with a breakdown of the Air Dribble Bump. All right, let's go over the main points of an air dribble bump. It's pretty simple, but it helps to break it down into its main points so it's easiest to understand. So firstly, you want to make sure that when you carry the ball, that it's going to be going in the net on a fly. The reason for this is because you want this defender to have to jump up to the ball here. If you put the ball towards the goal where it's just going to bounce in, then the defender could easily just drive up to it and dodge your bump and still make the save pretty easily. But when you put it in on a fly, the defender is forced to jump up to it to try and make the save. All right, so let's say you're in this position right now. You've gotten enough touches on it to where the ball is going to go in the net on this trajectory. And I know we're skipping ahead a little bit, but we'll come back to the carry here in a second. So let's say you've got the ball going at this trajectory already. Now your next goal is to take out that defender. One of the most common mistakes that people make in this position is going towards the defender to try and bump them. But the reason that's a mistake is because you're creating this gap between your car and the ball, which is enough room for the defender to go around you and still hit the ball and make the save. So you definitely don't want to leave the ball to try and go for a bump because it makes it easier for the defender. Instead, what you should do is stay near the ball the whole time and just cut off their angle to the ball. So instead of you going out of your way to bump the defender, you're forcing the defender to come to you and you're cutting off their only angle, so it's going to be an easy bump. And if the defender doesn't jump for it and they just keep driving here, obviously you're not going to bump them, but that's totally fine because the ball's above you and it's going to go in anyway. But it's important that you're not too close to the ball here, because if you're too close to the ball, then the defender can sometimes bump you into saving your own shot, which is really discouraging. So instead, you've kind of got to strike the right balance between not being too close and not being too far away. So there's kind of a sweet spot for it. And that exact place where the sweet spot is kind of depends on how fast you're going and where the defender is. So it's not going to be the exact same for every single air dribble bump. So it's really something that you just get a feel for. All right, so here's an in-game example from the view of the defender. So you can see I'm carrying it up there at the top of the screen, and watch how I transition to basically locking on the defender here. So you can see I got the trajectory to where it's gonna go in the goal on a fly, and I'm forcing the defender to jump, which is exactly what I want. So then I transition to trying to cut off the defender's angle that they have to the ball. And if we go forward here, you can see I cut off any sort of angle that they would have had to the ball, and then there was just nothing they can do since I did everything right on my part. And that's also a plus side. If you're going fast enough, you can straight up just demo them instead of bumping them, which lowers pretty much any chance that they have at bumping you into saving your own shot. And of course, the best way to do that is by bumping the defender with your nose. And that's because, one, that's the only way you can demo them. You can only demo someone using your nose. And two, because if you bump them with your nose, it's less likely that you're going to bounce back and save your own shot, even if you don't demo them. Like when you bump someone with your wheels, it's just the nature of the car that it's more likely that you're going to bounce off of their car even more and save your own shot. So when you transition to going for the bump, make sure you point your nose at the defender. All right, next let's move on to the best spot to place the ball before you end up going for that bump. So the best spot to place the ball is usually the furthest point away from the surface that the defender is jumping off of. And I say surface because they could drive up the wall and try and jump for the ball, or they could just stay on the ground and jump for it. So because of that, the first thing that you have to do is read where the defender is going to be jumping from. So in this case, if the defender is jumping from the ground on the left side, then you're going to want to place the ball up high on the right side. Because obviously this forces the defender to jump as far away as possible. And I mean, just look at this ground that they have to cover here. And again, you want to make the defender come to you, so you're not going to go towards the defender. You're going to make them come to you, and you're just cutting off their angle to the ball. But if they're on the wall, then it's a little bit different because you can see they're higher up. So it's important to keep in mind that whenever a player drives up on the wall, usually that's because they're going to try and go to the ball early before you can cut off their angle in time. So because of that, what you want to do is stop getting touches on the ball a little bit earlier, and that's going to cause, one, the ball to drop down a little more, but two, it's also going to allow you to cut off that angle earlier so they can't beat you to it. So you can see the angle that they have to go to the ball is going to be cut off pretty easily by you if you drop it down a little more and you're cutting off that angle earlier. And it's the same thing as the first one with this. You want to place it as far opposite to the side that they're coming from. Okay, one of the greatest things about air dribbles is the fact that you can turn them into so many things. Like you can turn them into a flip reset, double tap, fake, or a 50, or even a combination of those things. It's really just like it is on the ground where you have so many options. You know, when you're on the ground, you can do all these crazy sorts of flicks. You can pop it up for an air dribble. You can do a fake. You can do a bounce dribble, or a combination of those. Air dribbles really are their own avenue of options, which is why I think it's one of the most important things to practice at a high level. One of the biggest misconceptions about air dribbles, though, is the best way to practice them. A lot of people, especially newer players, will see this training pack called Wall to Air Dribble in the browse section of custom training, and they're going to do that, and that's going to be like their favorite training pack. And the reason it's their favorite is because they're seeing such immediate success on a seemingly advanced mechanic. But the reason you're seeing so much success on it is not because you're getting better at air dribbles, but because it's doing the hardest part of the air dribble for you. And that's the setup. You know, with this training pack, the ball is already rolling perfectly at the perfect speed for you. You don't have to do any of it on your own. So unfortunately, this training pack, even though it feels like you're getting a ton of success with it, it's not the best way to practice air dribbles. So instead, I've created a training pack that actually has realistic air dribble setups for the same way they would happen in a real game. It has all sorts of types of setups that you all have to do on your own. It has ones where it's starting on top of your car, so you're starting on a dribble. It has ones that are bouncing towards you on the ground, and it has ones where you have to take it up the wall all on your own. So if you want to try out this pack, the code is on screen now. It should be somewhere at the bottom. You can type it into the custom training section where it says enter code, and then you hit favorite, so that way you don't have to type in the code again each time. Or if you play on PC and you want to copy paste it, the code is also in the description. Now, how you use this training pack is pretty simple and self-explanatory, and you can use it for any type of air dribble too. It doesn't even have to be an air dribble bump. But since this video is about air dribble bumps, the best way I've found to use it is by carrying it up just like I would for a normal air dribble, but flying in front of the ball at the end. And I also make sure to go back on ball cam so I can see how good my placement was on the carry. Because remember, I want to put it in the net on a fly and usually as high up as possible. And again, it's important that you practice getting that right distance to where you're not too close to the ball, but also not too far. And that's literally as simple as it is. You just take it up, do the carry, fly in front of it at the end, and go on ball cam. Unfortunately, since it is a training pack, you can't practice bumping a real car because they just haven't added that feature yet. But if you want to practice bumping a real car, the best place to do that is usually in ones. I especially like practicing it against friends because, as you saw in the intro, it's pretty fun to see their reaction. We also like to put on the slow-mo mutator sometimes, so that way, if we're trying to practice the raw mechanics of it, we have more time to do so. And it allows us to adjust our car exactly how we want to practice the bump. So that is pretty much everything that I do to practice it. Now let's move on to how you defend this thing, because it is pretty hard, but there definitely are some tips that will give you the best chance. Alright, so keep in mind that this defensive strategy against air dribble bumps is not foolproof, because no strategy is foolproof. It's just that good of a mechanic. But there are some strategies that can give you the best chance that you have at saving it. So the most important thing about defending an air dribble bump is committing and deciding early about where you're going to save it from. And what I mean by that is committing to if you're going to dodge the attacker from above or from below. Most often, it's going to be from above because by the nature of the air dribble, the player's car is underneath the ball, so they're obviously leaving the top part exposed. But if you wait too long, then their car is going to go in front of the ball, and then the top part is no longer going to be exposed. So because of that, when you're going to attack from above, you have to jump earlier than normal so you can hit the ball before they cut off your angle to it. But you've got to be careful about jumping too early, assuming that they're going to keep getting touches on it, because if they see you jump that early, they can easily just fake it down and drop it underneath you. As you can see in this example on screen now, the defender Ocala jumps early to try and dodge the air dribble bump before Jorias can cut off his angle to it, but Jorias reacts to that and he just drops it down underneath for an easy goal. So you've got to be careful about jumping too early. And this is really another one of those things that you have to strike the right balance between not jumping too early to where they can just fake it and not jumping too late to where they cut off your angle in time. Here on screen now are some good examples from that same series where Jorias on defense jumps at that perfect timing before Ocala could bumper fake him, and because of that, he's able to make the save. Another way you can go above the attacker is by driving up the back wall. With this one, it's the same goal of trying to go to the ball before they can cut off your angle to it. But again, since you're committing from further away, you've got to be careful that they don't just drop it down. Alternatively, if you want to save it by going underneath it, you should only do it if the ball is going to land somewhere near the goal closer to the ground. And if you can tell that the trajectory is going to land on the ground, then yeah, you should just save it from underneath every single time. If the trajectory is not going to be low towards the goal, then pretty much every time you're going to want to try and save it from above. To give yourself the best chance at saving it, it's best to put yourself in a position where you have both options of either going above it or going below it. Because remember, the attacker is also watching what you do at the same time, and if he sees that you only have one option to go below the ball, he's going to do everything he can to try and not let you do that. But if you give yourself both options to where you could go above or you could go below, then they don't know which one you're going to choose. And because they don't know what you're going to choose, they have to try and cover both options of either above or below, which is much harder for them. Similarly, if you know you're going against a really fast and smart player, then you can try and fake them out by pretending to go up on the wall and then maybe going back down and going underneath it. This could work against a smart player because as you drive up on the wall here, they're going to think, oh yeah, he's going to try and go quick from above. So he's going to try and cut off that higher angle, but then you go back down and then you go for it from underneath. Or you could do it the other way around where you cut in at first, but then you go up the wall and try and save it from there. But again, that only has a chance of working at really high levels where people with the ball here can react that fast to what you're doing. And finally, if you know you're just screwed and they're covering every angle that you have, your best bet is to just try and power through and force them into saving their own shot by bumping them into it. But again, that should just be your last resort because that's the least controlled way of saving it. All right, that is it. That is my whole perspective of the most unstoppable mechanic in Rocket League from a defensive and an offensive perspective. If you want to see more breakdowns with this style in the future, then let me know in the comments and hit subscribe so you don't miss any videos in the future. Because this was a pretty fun video to make, and let me know which mechanic you think I should do next. If you want to see what I think the most overlooked method of ranking up in Rocket League is, that video is right there. And if you want to see my total breakdown of shooting in Rocket League, then that video is right there. But anyway, that's it. Thanks for watching. I'll see you later.